Mother Goose and the Sly Fox. Once there was a Mother Goose who lived in a snug little house. She was always busy with 7 tiny goslings to take care of and a do-nothing mouse who lived in the wall. Nearby, in a dirty, crooked house, there lived a sly fox with his 2 cubs. And there's the fox family at home. Here's Mother Goose with her little family, and there's the mouse bringing up the rear. One morning, Mother Goose got up early. She bustled around the kitchen while her family slept. When breakfast was ready, they tumbled in, each grumpier than the last. "It's too hot today." "No, it's too cold." "Our bed is too lumpy." "No, too soft." "I want porridge for breakfast." "No pancakes." The 7th gosling crumbled her toast, and Mr. Mouse didn't help at all. After breakfast, Mrs. Goose washed and swept while her children grouched, and then she said, "Mr. Mouse, I must go to the market. You watch my little ones, and please be sure they don't let strangers in the house." Mr. Mouse agreed, and out she went. Over at Fox's house, the greedy cubs were still hungry, even though they were licking up the remains of their breakfast feast. "We've only had 1 duck to eat today," yelled the first, "and only 2 chickens yesterday," howled the other. "There goes Mother Goose," said Fox. "Those fat goslings of hers would make a delicious dinner." "Don't forget the mouse for dessert," said the cubs. So Father Mouse went to Mrs. Goose's house and knocked on the door. He growled in his rough, gruff voice, let me in, sweetiekins, it's your dear mother." "You do not sound like our mother," the goslings cried, and they didn't let him in. Fox went to the miller and bought a sack of flour. He dabbed some on his tongue, which made his voice soft and smooth. Fox had a terrible plan. He returned to Mother Goose's house. "Let me in, my precious ones," he crooned. But he put his paw on the windowsill, and his dirty feet showed under the door. "You do not look like our mother," said the goslings, and they didn't let him in. This time the fox went to the baker, and he told a lie. "I hurt my paw," he lied. "Put some dough on it, will you?" The kindly baker wrapped his paw in gingerbread. His next stop was the cobbler's, when he tried on some new shoes. The cobbler took one look at the fox, shook his head, and said, "You are up to some trick. I will not sell you these shoes. If you don't, I will eat you up," said the fox, and marched away in his new shoes. The fox was now in disguise. For the 3rd time, he knocked on Mother Goose's door. Let me in, children. I brought you presents." "Presents!" squealed the gosling. "That sounds like Mother." They looked at Fox's gingerbread paw draped on the window ledge. "It looks like Mother," they agreed. Mr. Mouse glanced under the door and saw large red feet. "Oh, it's your mother, all right," he said. "No problem." So the foolish goslings opened the door. The fox rushed in. He scooped up Mr. Mouse and threw him in the sack. He caught the goslings one by one, except for the 7th, who hid in the clock. Satisfied with his catch, Mr. Fox tied the sack tightly and left by the back door. The noon sun shone hot and bright. His bundle seemed to grow heavier as he trudged along, and he said, "Oh, a quick rest will do me good." So he stretched out under a shady bush. Soon he was fast asleep. There he is, sleeping under the tree. When Mother Goose returned home, she found the door open and her family gone. The seventh gosling jumped out of the clock case and told her the whole terrible story. They rushed out to look for Fox, following his trail until they found him in the bag of goslings. Mother Goose took out her sharp little scissors and snip, 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 cut a hole in the bag. "Hush," she said to her children. "Hush, quickly, find a stone the same size you are and roll it back to me." While they did, Mother Goose threaded the needle, and the seventh gosling knotted the thread. She put the stones into the sack and sewed it up neatly so no one could tell the difference. Then quickly and quietly she led her family home. There they are, they're going home. By and by, the fox awoke with a yawn and a stretch. He looked at the sack lying beside him and smiled. "I am such a clever fellow. I know just how to get things done." He picked up the sack and wound the cord around his paw for a good grip and started for home. Crossing the bridge, he said to himself, "These goslings weigh a ton. Well, no matter, the fatter the better. We will have a feast." And he licked his lips. "A drink will do me good." He clambered down to the river's edge. As he leaned over to lap up some water, the heavy sack pulled him forward. Kersplash! Into the river went the sly fox. Weighed down by the stones, he sank straight to the muddy bottom. 3 big fish swam over to get a good look at him. One nipped his nose, another bit his toes, the third nibbled his tail. Terrified, the fox struggled free, splashing and sputtering. He galloped away as fast as he could with his 2 cubs right behind him. They fled deep into the forest and were never seen again. Mother Goose, back home with her family, gave Mr. Mouse a good talking to. "How could you be so careless with my babies?" she scolded. Mr. Mouse was very sorry, and to make up and show he could do things right, he fixed a delicious supper. Then the goslings cleaned up all by themselves, and Mother Goose sat in her big comfy chair and had a holiday. The end.